In the silence of forgotten tombs, in the shadows of ancient ruins, there are whispers, stories long buried beneath stone and time. Welcome to Ancient Whisper, where we journey beyond the veil of modern history, into the secrets, the mysteries, and the truths that were never meant to be unearthed. If you're drawn to the unexplained, if you seek knowledge buried in the sands of time, then you're in the right place. Don't forget to like this video if it stirs your curiosity. Comment your thoughts or theories below, and subscribe to join our growing tribe of seekers. Every whisper you hear here could change the way you see history forever. Now, listen closely. The past is speaking. What if we told you that a single cataclysm, a flood so vast it swallowed the world, wasn't just a story, but a memory etched into the soul of humanity? Not one tale, not two, but over 200 cultures scattered across continents, oceans, and millennia tell of a great deluge that erased a world and birthed a new one. From the ancient Mesopotamians to the Maya, from the Hindus to the Norse, from the Chinese to the indigenous Australians, the same haunting narrative emerges. A divine warning, a chosen survivor, a vessel to defy the waves, and a rebirth from ruin. This isn't folklore spun by chance. It's a global echo, a chorus sung in languages that never crossed paths. Could these stories be the fading footprints of a civilization so advanced it makes our skyscrapers and starships seem like child's play? Let's plunge into this mystery where the whispers of a lost world beckon us to uncover the truth. The flood story you might know best comes from the Bible. Noah, chosen by God, is warned of a coming deluge. He builds an ark, gathers his family and every kind of animal, and waits as the heavens unleash a torrent. For 40 days and nights, rain pours without mercy, submerging the earth, wiping away wickedness. When the waters recede, Noah's ark rests on a mountain, and a new world begins. But this isn't just a tale from one ancient book. It's a narrative that spans the globe, appearing in cultures that had no contact, no shared history, no reason to tell the same story. This isn't a coincidence. It's a pattern, one that demands we ask, what event was so monumental that it left its mark on every continent? Let's travel back to ancient Mesopotamia, where the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest written stories, speaks of Utnapishtim. Warned by the god Aa, he builds a massive boat, filling it with his family, craftsmen, and the seeds of all living things. When the deluge comes, it's apocalyptic, erasing humanity except for those aboard his vessel. Now, journey to ancient India, where the Hindu texts tell of Manu, the first man. A fish, perhaps a god in disguise, warns him of a flood. Manu constructs a ship, and as the waters rise, he's towed to safety, tasked with repopulating the earth. The parallels are striking, aren't they? But the story doesn't end here. Cross the oceans to the Americas, and the Maya's sacred Popol Vuh describes a great flood sent to destroy a corrupt humanity, with survivors chosen to rebuild. In ancient Greece, Deucalion and Pieria receive a warning from Zeus. They build a chest, float through the chaos, and land on Mount Parnassus to start anew. The Norse myths tell of a flood that drowns the world, sparing only a few to carry on. In China, the legend of Yu the Great speaks of a catastrophic flood tamed by divine intervention. Even the indigenous peoples of Australia, isolated for tens of thousands of years, share tales of a great water that reshaped the land, preserving a chosen few. Over 200 cultures from every corner of the globe tell this story. How could so many voices, separated by time and distance, sing the same song? What makes these stories so compelling isn't just their spread, it's their specificity. Each follows a distinct blueprint. First, a warning from a god or celestial being. Second, a chosen survivor, often with their family, tasked with preserving life. Third, a great vessel, be it an ark, a boat, or a chest, is built to weather the storm. Fourth, animals and knowledge are safeguarded, ensuring the world can continue. And finally, a new beginning emerges, a world forever changed from what came before. These elements appear time and again, even in cultures with no shared language or history. The Sumerians didn't trade tales with the Maya. The Greeks had no contact with the Australians. Yet the flood binds them all. This isn't myth, it's memory. Scholars like James Fraser and Mircea Eliade have argued that myths this widespread, this consistent, aren't mere stories. They're oral histories, eyewitness accounts of an event so profound it scarred the collective psyche of humanity. Picture it, a catastrophe so immense it wasn't just seen, but felt across the world. A flood that didn't just destroy villages, but reshaped continents, erased cultures, and reset the course of history. The question isn't whether these stories are true, it's what they're trying to tell us. Are they memories of a real deluge passed down through generations, distorted by time, but anchored in truth? Consider the implications. If the flood was real, what did it destroy? The biblical narrative says it was wickedness humans gone astray, too corrupt to save. But what if it was more than that? What if the flood erased a civilization so advanced it dwarfs our skyscrapers, our technology, our understanding of the cosmos? The idea is startling, but the clues lie within the stories themselves. Many flood myths don't just speak of destruction. They hint at a world before the waters, a world of forgotten splendor. The Mesopotamian tales describe a golden age before the deluge when knowledge flourished. The Hindu texts speak of cycles of time, with civilizations rising and falling in ages of wisdom. The Maya and Egyptians whisper of ancestors who held secrets we've yet to rediscover. Could these be echoes of a society that rivaled or surpassed our own? You might wonder, how could a flood wipe out an entire advanced civilization? The Noah story itself raises questions. How did one man warn the world? How did he build an ark for every animal? Why didn't anyone else heed the warning? Historians have grappled with these puzzles for centuries, and some dismiss the flood as pure myth. But when over 200 cultures tell the same story, it's hard to wave it away. If it was just one or two tales, we could blame local floods or storms. But when the narrative spans the globe, it starts to feel like truth dressed in myth. The flood isn't just a story. It's a record of something real, something catastrophic. Let's dig deeper into what these stories share. The flood is never a mere storm. It's a world ender, a force of unimaginable power. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the gods unleash a deluge so fierce that even they tremble. The Hindu Matsya Purana describes waters that swallow mountains. The Norse myths speak of a flood that drowns giants and gods alike. These aren't seasonal rains or river overflows. They're apocalyptic, capable of erasing entire landscapes. And here's the key. Many of these stories don't just focus on destruction. They emphasize preservation. The chosen survivors, Noah, Utnapishtim, Manu, aren't just saving themselves. They're saving knowledge, animals, the seeds of a new world. Why? Because something vital was at stake. something worth protecting from the waters. This leads to a chilling possibility. What if the flood didn't just target human flaws, but something far greater, a civilization that had mastered technologies, sciences, or even philosophies beyond our grasp? Many flood myths describe the world before the deluge as corrupt, yes, but also advanced. The Mesopotamian texts hint at cities of great splendor. The Hindu Yuga cycles speak of golden ages where wisdom reigned. The Australian Dreamtime stories mention a time when the land was shaped by powers we no longer understand. These aren't just tales of survival. They're tales of loss of a world that was swept away. How could such a civilization vanish so completely? If it was so advanced, shouldn't there be ruins, tools, or records? The flood myths offer a clue. The waters didn't just destroy. They buried. They reshaped the earth, hiding what came before under layers of sediment, silt, and sea. Yet some things endure. The stories themselves are proof, surviving millennia, passed from generation to generation across cultures that had no reason to share them. If the tales could survive, what else might have? Could there be physical evidence locked in the earth or hidden beneath the waves, waiting to be uncovered? The flood myths are more than stories. They're a global memory, a testament to a catastrophe that changed everything. But what exactly was lost? Was it just a world of sinners? Or a civilization that knew secrets we're only beginning to rediscover? The earth itself may hold the answers in its rocks, its soil, its ancient seabeds. In the next part of our journey, we'll turn to a place where the scars of a great deluge are etched in stone in the Channeled Scablands. A landscape so alien, it looks like the aftermath of a planetary war. These scars may prove the flood was real, and that it erased more than we've ever imagined. The Great Flood left echoes in stories across the globe, a memory of a world drowned by water. But stories alone don't prove a catastrophe. They fade, they shift, they blur with time. What if the earth itself holds the evidence, etched in stone and soil, of a deluge so powerful it reshaped continents? Picture a landscape where rivers run dry, valleys gape too wide for their streams, and ripples the size of buildings scar the rock. This is no fantasy. It's the Channeled Scablands of Washington, a place that looks like the aftermath of a planetary war. Could this bizarre terrain, along with other mega floods across the world, be the physical proof of the flood that erased a lost civilization? Let's step into the Earth's own library, where the scars of a cataclysm tell a story no myth can hide. In the rugged expanse of eastern Washington, the Channeled Scablands defy explanation at first glance. Imagine standing on a cliff, gazing at a landscape that shouldn't exist. Dry canyons hundreds of feet deep, boulders the size of houses scattered like toys, and massive ripples carved into solid basalt, some as tall as a 10-story building. These aren't the gentle curves of wind or rain over millennia. They're violent, sudden, chaotic. For decades, geologists puzzled over this terrain, unable to reconcile its strangeness with the slow, patient processes they knew. Rivers don't carve valleys this deep without water to match. Ripples don't form in stone without a force beyond imagination. What could have created such a place? In the 1920s, a geologist named J. Harlan Bretz stepped forward with a radical answer. He proposed that the Scablands were carved by a flood, not a river, not a storm, but a deluge so immense it dwarfed anything in recorded history. Bretz envisioned walls of water, hundreds of feet high, moving at speeds over 60 miles per hour, tearing through the landscape in mere days. He calculated that this flood carried volumes of water equivalent to 10 times the flow of all the world's rivers combined. His colleagues laughed. A flood of that scale? Impossible. They called it catastrophism, a relic of outdated science tied to biblical tales. Bretz was dismissed, his ideas ridiculed. But he stood firm, pointing to the evidence. The canyons, the boulders, the ripples. Something colossal had happened here. It took 50 years for the truth to catch up. In the 1970s, satellite imagery and new geological studies confirmed Bretz's theory. The Scablands were indeed the scars of a megaflood, or a series of them, triggered by the collapse of glacial dams during the last ice age. Around 14,000 years ago, a massive ice dam holding back Lake Missoula, a glacial lake, the size of a small sea, gave way. The water unleashed was apocalyptic, a roaring wall that scoured the earth, carving the Scablands in days. Geologists now call these the Missoula floods, a series of cataclysmic events that reshaped the Pacific Northwest. The evidence is undeniable. The Scablands are a monument to a flood of unimaginable power. But could this be the same flood whispered about in myths across the world? The Missoula floods offer a glimpse of what a global deluge might look like. Picture water moving so fast, it rips bedrock apart, carrying boulders miles from their origin, leaving behind channels that look like they belong on Mars. The Scablands' giant ripples, known as mega ripples, are unlike anything formed by modern rivers. They're spaced hundreds of feet apart, formed by currents so strong they defy comprehension. Geologists estimate the floods reached depths of 400 feet in places, with flows powerful enough to move 200-ton boulders. This wasn't erosion over centuries. It was destruction in days. The Earth didn't just record this event. It was reshaped by it. But the Scablands aren't alone. Other parts of the world bear similar scars, suggesting the flood wasn't a single event, but part of a global upheaval. Take the Black Sea, a region that tells its own story of catastrophe. In 1998, geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman proposed the Black Sea deluge hypothesis. Around 7,600 years ago, they argue, the Mediterranean Sea reached a natural dam at the Bosporus, flooding the Black Sea basin with a force 200 times greater than Niagara Falls. The water rose at a rate of 6 inches per day, submerging 60,000 square miles of land. Coastal settlements, potentially home to advanced communities, would have been swallowed in weeks. The evidence is compelling. Sediment cores from the Black Sea show a sudden shift from freshwater to saltwater deposits, dated to around 5,600 BCE. Could this be another piece of the flood puzzle? Then there's the Gulf of Cambay, off India's northwest coast. In 2001, marine archaeologists discovered submerged structures' geometric patterns, walls, and artifacts buried under 120 feet of water. Dated to around 9,000 years ago, these findings predate the Indus Valley civilization by centuries. The sediment layers suggest a rapid, catastrophic inundation, not a slow rise in sea levels. Were these the remains of a coastal city caught in a deluge? The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis offers a possible cause. Around 12,800 years ago, scientists like Richard Firestone propose a comet fragment struck Earth, triggering massive climate shifts. Ice sheets melted rapidly, sending torrents of water across continents and raising sea levels by tens of feet in a matter of days. The Gulf of Cambay, the Black Sea, the Scablands, these aren't isolated events. They're chapters in a global story. What makes these mega floods so intriguing is their timing. The Younger Dryas, A sudden cold snap from 12,800 to 11,600 years ago marks a period of dramatic climate change. Ice core data from Greenland and sediment records from across the globe show evidence of rapid sea level rise, glacial melt, and catastrophic flooding. The Missoula floods, dated to around 14,000 years ago, align with the early stages of this period. The Black Sea deluge, around 7,600 years ago, falls later, but still within a window of global upheaval. These events suggest a world in chaos, where floods didn't just reshape landscapes, but erased entire ways of life. If advanced civilizations existed along ancient coastlines, as many researchers speculate, they would have been prime targets for these waters. But what kind of civilizations could have existed? The flood myths hint at societies with knowledge and power beyond what we credit to ancient peoples. The Scablands and other mega-flood sites give us a glimpse of the forces that could have buried them. Imagine a city, its towers gleaming, its people mastering arts and sciences we can only guess at. Then imagine walls of water, hundreds of feet high, crashing through, leaving nothing but silt and ruin. The Scablands scars, those deep canyons, those scattered boulders, aren't just geological oddities. They're warnings, evidence that the Earth can erase even the greatest achievements in days. Researchers like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson push this idea further. They argue the Younger Dryas wasn't just a climate shift, but a global reset triggered by cosmic events. Hancock points to sediment layers worldwide that contain nanodiamonds and iridium, signatures of a comet impact. Carlson calculates the energy of megafloods, showing they could have submerged entire regions in hours. Their work, though controversial, aligns with the physical evidence. The Scablands' violent terrain, the Black Sea's sudden flooding, the submerged structures in the Gulf of Cambay. These aren't just natural disasters. They're clues to a catastrophe that may have ended a chapter of human history. The Earth's memory doesn't lie. The Scablands, with their impossible ripples and canyons, scream of a flood that defied comprehension. The Black Sea and Gulf of Cambay whisper of lost worlds hidden beneath the waves. These mega-floods, tied to the Younger Dryas and beyond, paint a picture of a planet reshaped by water. But what did that water take? If the flood myths are memories and the Earth's scars are proof, then what lies buried in those lost landscapes? Could there be ruins older than history allows, waiting to tell their story? This brings us to a place where the past speaks not in myths or rocks, but in stone carved by hands long gone. In Turkey, a site called Göbekli Tepe challenges everything we know about human history. Its massive pillars, carved with precision 11,600 years ago, stand as a testament to a people who weren't supposed to exist. Were they survivors of the flood, or builders from a world it destroyed? The channeled scablands and megafloods across the globe reveal a planet scarred by cataclysmic waters, capable of erasing entire landscapes in days. If such floods could carve canyons and submerge coastlines, what else might they have swept away? The flood myths whisper of a world before the deluge, a world not just of people, but of brilliance. A civilization so advanced its echoes challenge everything we know about history. In the hills of Turkey and the highlands of Bolivia, two sites stand as defiant survivors of time: Göbekli Tepe and Pamapungku. These aren't crude shelters or simple villages. They're monuments of precision, engineering, and mystery, built by hands that shouldn't have existed. Dated to an era when humans were supposedly hunter-gatherers, these structures hint at a society of architects, astronomers, and engineers, perhaps the last remnants of a civilization drowned by the flood. Let's walk among their stones and ask, could these be the fingerprints of a world lost to the waters? In southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe rises from the earth like a riddle carved in stone. Discovered in 1994, this site shattered the timeline of human history. Its massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing 20 tons, are arranged in circles adorned with intricate carvings of animals, humans, and celestial symbols. Carbon dating places it at 11,600 years old, 7,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids, 6,000 years before Stonehenge. This wasn't built by a primitive tribe. The pillars, cut from limestone with machine-like precision, were hauled from quarries miles away and erected with a sophistication that defies explanation. Each circle, some as wide as 65 feet, aligns with astronomical events, suggesting knowledge of the stars we credit to later civilizations. The site's scale is staggering. Over 20 enclosures, buried deliberately under tons of earth, preserved as if waiting to be found. What makes Göbekli Tepe so unsettling is its context. Mainstream archaeology tells us humans 11,600 years ago were nomads, scraping by with stone tools and temporary camps. Yet here we have a complex of monumental structures built with tools and techniques that shouldn't exist. The carvings, foxes, serpents are not random. They're symbolic, possibly a record of myths or cosmic events. A 2017 study by Martin Sweetman and Dimitrios Sikritsis linked the carvings to a comet impact around 10,950 BCE. Coinciding with the Younger Dryas period, the same era of climate chaos and mega floods we explored in the Scablands. The pillars' alignment with stars like Sirius suggests an understanding of precession, a 26,000-year cycle rediscovered only in modern times. How did a so-called primitive people achieve this? But there's more. Göbekli Tepe shows signs of sudden abandonment. Many of its enclosures were buried, not by natural sediment, but deliberately, as if to protect them or hide them. Some pillars bear cracks and weathering, consistent with exposure to violent water flow. Could these be scars of a flood? The Younger Dryas, from 12,800 to 11,600 years ago, brought rapid sea level rise and catastrophic flooding, as we saw in the Black Sea and Gulf of Cambay. Göbekli Tepe, built at the tail end of this period, might have been a sanctuary, a final stand against the rising waters. Or perhaps it was raised by survivors, a monument to a world they'd lost. The question lingers: who were these builders, and what drove them to create such a place? Now, let's journey across the globe to the highlands of Bolivia, where Pamupanku tells an even stranger story. Part of the Tiwanaku complex, this site sits at 12,600 feet above sea level. Harsh environment where survival alone is a challenge. Yet, here we find stone blocks weighing over 100 tons, cut with such precision they fit together like a puzzle. These aren't rough-hewn rocks. The andesite blocks, among the hardest stones to work, are shaped with flat surfaces, right angles, and interlocking joints so tight a sheet of paper can't fit between them. Some blocks feature grooves and drill holes, as if machined by tools we associate with modern industry. Radiocarbon dating and geological analysis place Pamupanku's construction between 10,000 and 2,000 years ago, with the oldest layers potentially aligning with the Younger Dryas. The mystery deepens when you consider the logistics. Andesite, sourced from quarries miles away, was somehow transported across rugged terrain and high altitudes. The block surfaces are polished to a mirror-like finish, and some feature modular designs like Lego pieces, suggesting mass production. A 2014 study by archaeologist Alexei Vranich noted that the precision of Pomapunku's stonework surpasses the capabilities of known ancient tools. Copper chisels, the standard of the time, would shatter against andesite. Stone hammers couldn't achieve such accuracy. Some blocks even show signs of laser-like cuts, prompting speculation about lost technology's sound resonance, perhaps, or tools we can't yet imagine. How did a people without the wheel, without metallurgy, accomplish this? Like Göbekli Tepe, Pomapunku bears signs of catastrophe. Many blocks are scattered, as if toppled by a sudden force. Sediment layers around the site suggest flooding, with water-deposited silt covering the lower structures. The Tiwanaku region, once thought to be a dry plateau, shows evidence of ancient lake beds, possibly formed by glacial meltwater surges during the Younger Dryas. Could Pomapunku have been abandoned as floodwaters rose, its builders fleeing or perishing? The site's oldest layers, the most precise, contrast sharply with later, cruder additions by the Tiwanaku culture. This pattern advanced older structures beneath simpler, newer ones hints at a forgotten people, their knowledge lost to time. What ties Göbekli Tepe and Pomapunku together is their defiance of history's timeline. Mainstream archaeology credits the first civilizations to Mesopotamia and Egypt around 5,000 years ago. Yet these sites, built thousands of years earlier, show a mastery of engineering, astronomy, and architecture we struggle to explain. Göbekli Tepe's celestial alignments suggest a deep understanding of the cosmos. Pomapunku's stonework implies tools and techniques beyond our grasp. Both sites were abandoned suddenly, their lower layers marked by signs of water damage. The Younger Dryas, with its floods and climate upheaval, looms as a prime suspect. Could these be the last traces of a civilization that thrived before the waters came? The evidence doesn't stop at construction. Göbekli Tepe's carvings include symbols that resemble early writing, predating Sumerian cuneiform by millennia. A 2020 analysis by archaeologist Klaus Schmidt suggested the site was a cultural hub, possibly a temple or observatory, built by a society with complex social structures. Pomapunku's modular blocks hint at standardized engineering, a hallmark of advanced planning. Both sites challenge the idea that early humans were simple nomads. They suggest a people with knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and perhaps even acoustics, given the resonant properties of Pomapunku's stones. Were these the works of a single civilization spread across continents or multiple societies sharing a lost paradigm? The flood myths we explored earlier speak of a world before the deluge, a world of wisdom and power. Göbekli Tepe and Pomapunku seem to echo that world. Their builders weren't just piling stones. They were creating monuments meant to endure. Yet something stopped them. The cracks in Göbekli Tepe's pillars, the scattered blocks of Pomapunku, the silt and sediment burying their foundations, all point to a catastrophe. The Younger Dryas, with its comet-driven floods, could have been the hammer that shattered this world. If so, what else lies buried, waiting to be found? This question takes us beyond the land to the depths of the oceans. Göbekli Tepe and Pomapunku stand as monumental puzzles, their precision and age challenging our understanding of early human ingenuity. These structures, possibly scarred by a great flood, suggest a civilization far more advanced than history allows. Yet, if such a flood could reshape landscapes and bury monuments, where else might its traces linger? The answer lies not on land, but beneath the waves. Deep in the oceans, off the coasts of India, Japan, and beyond, sonar scans have uncovered sunken structures, grids, walls, and artifacts that defy natural explanation. Dated to the turbulent Younger Dryas era, these submerged sites hint at cities lost to a cataclysmic deluge. Could they be the fabled Atlantis or fragments of a forgotten global network? Let's plunge into the abyss to explore what the sea has preserved. In 2001, off India's northwest coast in the Gulf of Cambay, marine archaeologists made a startling discovery. Using sonar, they mapped structures 120 feet underwater, stretching across 9 miles. These weren't random formations. The scans revealed grid-like patterns, straight walls, and what appeared to be channels suggestive of a planned settlement. Divers recovered artifacts, pottery, beads, and a carved piece of wood carbon dated to around 9,000 years ago, predating the Indus Valley civilization by centuries. The sediment layers blanketing these structures tell a tale of sudden catastrophe, thick with silt and marine deposits. They point to a rapid inundation, not a slow rise in sea levels. This was no gradual submersion. It was a deluge that swallowed a thriving community in days. The Gulf of Cambay's findings are striking. Sonar images show rectangular foundations, some aligned with cardinal directions, hinting at urban planning. A 2003 report by India's National Institute of Ocean Technology noted the structure's unnatural precision, with walls forming near-perfect right angles. The wood fragment, dated to 7,500 BCE, aligns with the waning years of the Younger Dryas, a period of climatic upheaval marked by mega-floods. Chemical analysis of the sediment revealed a sharp transition from terrestrial to marine deposits, suggesting a tsunami or glacial meltwater surge. This wasn't a village. It was a sophisticated settlement, possibly a hub of trade or culture, erased by waters that left only echoes in the deep. Across the globe, off Japan's Ryukyu Islands, the Yonaguni monument offers an even stranger enigma. Discovered in 1986 by a diver, this underwater structure lies 80 feet below the surface. A sprawling complex of stone platforms, terraces, and staircases. The largest feature, a stepped pyramid-like formation, spans 150 feet and rises 90 feet high. Geologist Masahaki Kimura, who studied the site for over 2 decades, argues it's man-made, citing its precise 90-degree angles, tool marks, and a carved human face on one block. Carbon dating of coral and sediment places Yonaguni at 10,000 to 8,000 years old, overlapping with the Younger Dryas. Its symmetry, straight edges, flat surfaces, and what appear to be drainage channels challenge the idea that nature alone shaped it. Skeptics claim Yonaguni is a natural formation, its shape's the result of sandstone fracturing. But Kimura's team at the University of the Ryukyu counters with compelling evidence. A 2016 study noted geometric triangles etched into the stone and a road-like path circling the structure. The monument's alignment with the constellation Orion, similar to Göbekli Tepe's celestial connections, suggests astronomical knowledge. If artificial, Yonaguni points to a maritime culture with advanced stonework skills, thriving on a coastline later submerged. The Younger Dryas, with its rapid ice melt, could have drowned this site, locking it in a watery tomb. The question remains, Was this a temple, a fortress, or part of a larger city now lost? Closer to legend, we find Dwarka off India's Gujarat coast, revered in Hindu texts as the city of Krishna. The Mahabharata describes Dwarka as a prosperous kingdom, rich in trade and culture, until the sea claimed it. In the 1980s, marine archaeologists began exploring the site, uncovering walls, pillars, and stone anchors 100 feet underwater. Pottery shards and metal tools, dated to around 7,500 years ago, align with the Black Sea deluge and Gulf of Cambay. The submerged structures form a grid-like layout with rectangular foundations, suggesting a planned city. Sediment cores reveal a sudden influx of marine deposits, consistent with a catastrophic flood, perhaps a tsunami or glacial surge. The texts call it divine wrath, but the evidence points to a real disaster that erased a coastal hub. These submerged sites share a haunting pattern. They're ancient, predating recognized civilizations like Mesopotamia or Egypt. They're coastal, vulnerable to rising seas, and they're buried under thick silt, indicating a violent, rapid inundation. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis provides a possible culprit. Around 12,800 years ago, a comet fragment may have struck Earth, as proposed by Richard Firestone and others. Sediment layers worldwide contain nanodiamonds and iridium, markers of a cosmic impact. This event triggered rapid ice melt, raising sea levels by tens of feet in decades. Coastal settlements like those in the Gulf of Cambay, Yonaguni, and Dwarka would have been engulfed, their inhabitants fleeing or perishing. What kind of societies built these places? The Gulf of Cambay's grid suggests urban planning, a sign of complex social organization. Yonaguni's carvings and alignments imply artistic and astronomical expertise. Dwarka's anchors and pottery point to a seafaring culture, possibly trading across vast distances. These weren't nomadic camps. They were settlements with infrastructure, perhaps part of a broader network. The flood myths we explored earlier, with their tales of chosen survivors, hint at what was at stake. Utnapishtim saved craftsmen alongside animals, suggesting specialized skills. Manu preserved the seeds of life, perhaps including cultural knowledge. These stories may reflect efforts to salvage a civilization's legacy as the waters rose. The legend of Atlantis, recorded by Plato in 360 BCE, feels eerily relevant. In Timaeus and Critias, he describes a maritime empire, advanced in wealth and technology, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night around 9,600 BCE, a date aligning with the Younger Dryas. Scholars often dismiss Atlantis as allegory, but the submerged sites we're uncovering challenge that view. The Gulf of Cambay's urban layout, Yonaguni's precise stonework, Dwarka's trade artifacts, they match Plato's description of a sophisticated society lost to a flood. Could Atlantis be a memory of one of these places, or a collective name for a network of coastal cities drowned in the same cataclysm? The pattern extends beyond these sites. In the Bahamas, the Bimini Road, a half-mile-long path of massive stone blocks underwater, dates to around 10,000 years ago. Sonar scans off Cuba reveal geometric structures at 2,000 feet deep, though exploration remains limited. In the Mediterranean, submerged ruins near Egypt and Greece suggest lost ports from the same era. A 2018 study by the University of Southampton estimated that sea levels rose 10 to 20 meters in some regions within a century during the Younger Dryas, enough to erase coastal settlements. The silt covering these sites points to sudden flooding tsunamis or meltwater surges, rather than gradual submersion. The implications are profound. If these were cities, they suggest a level of organization and technology far beyond what we attribute to humans 10,000 years ago. The Gulf of Cambay's layout hints at civic planning. Yonaguni's stonework suggests tools we can't yet replicate. Dwarka's anchors imply maritime prowess. These sites, all coastal, may have been nodes in a global network, trading goods and ideas. The flood myth's emphasis on preserving knowledge suggests survivors carried fragments of this world forward, influencing later cultures like the Sumerians or Egyptians. But the waters buried more than buildings. They hid a way of life. Why are these sites so hard to find? The flood's power lies in its ability to erase. Silt and sediment entomb structures, while coastal erosion and tectonic shifts obscure the past. Yet modern tools, sonar, underwater drones, and radiocarbon dating are lifting the veil. The Gulf of Cambay, Yonaguni, and Dwarka are just the beginning. As exploration deepens, more sites may emerge, each a clue to a lost world. But buildings are only part of the story. What if this civilization left behind not just stone, but knowledge of sciences, technologies, or philosophies that survived the flood in fragments? This brings us to a new frontier. What do you think about these sunken cities? Are they remnants of Atlantis or something even stranger? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Maybe share where you're tuning in from or what time it is as you listen to this mystery unfold. If you're as fascinated by these secrets as I am, consider subscribing to Mystery History for Sleep for more journeys into the unknown. Share this with a friend who loves a good historical puzzle, and let's keep exploring together. The submerged cities of the Gulf of Cambay, Yonaguni, and Dwarka lie beneath the waves, their stones whispering of a civilization erased by a cataclysmic flood. These ruins, with their precise layouts and maritime artifacts, suggest a society of planners and navigators, thriving before history's recognized dawn. Yet the flood's power didn't just bury buildings. It hid something far greater, knowledge. What if the civilization lost to the waters wasn't only skilled in stonework, but mastered sciences, technologies, or philosophies that rival our own? Scattered across ancient texts and enigmatic artifacts are clues to a wisdom so advanced it feels alien to our understanding of the past. From Sumerian star charts to mechanical devices predating modern science, these relics hint at a lost paradigm, preserved in fragments by survivors of the deluge. Let's unravel these traces and ask, what did this forgotten world know, and how did its echoes shape the one we inherited? In ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, often credited as humanity's first civilization around 4000 BCE, left behind writings that unsettle our timeline of progress. Their cuneiform tablets, etched in clay, contain astronomical records detailing the orbits of planets, including Uranus and Neptune bodies invisible to the naked eye, and not rediscovered until the 19th century with telescopes. A tablet from the British Museum, catalogued as K267, describes the positions of Jupiter and Saturn with mathematical precision, using geometric calculations unknown to later Greeks. How did a people emerging from the supposed dawn of civilization possess such knowledge? The Sumerians themselves offer a clue. Their texts speak of the Anunnaki, sky beings who taught them astronomy, mathematics, and agriculture. Were these gods, as mainstream scholars suggest, mere myths, or were they survivors of a pre-flood civilization passing down fragments of a lost science? The Sumerian knowledge wasn't limited to the stars. Their texts include a base 60 number system, still used in our clocks and geometry, and calculations for square roots and cubic equations. A 2017 study by the University of Cambridge on the Plimpton 322 tablet revealed it contains a trigonometric table predating Greek mathematician Hipparchus by over a millennium. This wasn't trial and error math. It was a system, sophisticated and deliberate. The Sumerians' sudden leap into such complexity suggests they didn't invent it from scratch. Could they have inherited it from a culture that thrived before the Younger Dryas floods, some 12,800 to 11,600 years ago? The flood myths, with their emphasis on preserving knowledge, support this idea. Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh saved not just animals, but craftsmen keepers of skills. Perhaps these skills included the secrets of the cosmos. Travel to ancient Egypt, and another enigma emerges: the Dendera lights. Carved on the walls of the Hathor temple at Dendera, these reliefs depict bulb-like shapes connected to what resemble cables, held by figures in ceremonial poses. Some researchers, like engineer Peter Krussa, argue these depict vacuum tubes or arc lamps, devices not invented until the 19th century. The carvings, dated to around 300 BCE, show a serpent-like filament inside the bulbs, eerily similar to early electric lights. Mainstream Egyptologists call them symbolic, representing mythological serpents or creation stories. Yet a 2005 analysis by physicist John Harris noted the carving's technical detail-insulated bases, cable-like lines, suggesting a functional design. Could these be a memory of a pre-flood technology, preserved in ritual art by a culture that no longer understood its origins? The mystery deepens in Bolivia at the Tiwanaku complex near Pamacancu. Here, the Gate of the Sun, a monolithic arch carved from a single andesite block, bears intricate symbols some interpret as a solar calendar. A 2014 study by archaeologist Arthur Posnansky argued it tracks solstices and equinoxes with greater accuracy than many modern calendars. The gate, dated to around 1,500 BCE, but possibly built on older foundations, suggests a culture with advanced astronomical knowledge. The Tiwanaku region shows evidence of ancient lake beds, likely formed by Younger Dryas meltwater surges. Could the gate's creators have been survivors of a flooded civilization, encoding their knowledge in stone? The precision of its carvings, like Pamapunku's interlocking blocks, hints at a science we've yet to fully grasp. Perhaps the most astonishing relic is the Antikythera Mechanism, recovered from a Greek shipwreck in 1901. Dated to around 100 BCE, this bronze device, filled with interlocking gears, is often called the world's first computer. It predicted planetary movements, eclipses, and even Olympic dates with mechanical precision. A 2006 X-ray study by Tony Freeth revealed gears with tolerances rivaling modern clockwork based on Babylonian astronomical cycles. Yet the mechanism's complexity suggests an older origin. Greek texts mention similar devices attributed to Archimedes or earlier inventors, possibly salvaged from a pre-flood tradition. The Younger Dryas floods, which submerged coastal cities, could have disrupted a technological lineage, leaving devices like this as rare survivors. These artifacts and texts share a pattern. They appear too advanced for their time. The Sumerian tablets describe planets unseen without telescopes. The Dendera lights mimic modern electrical devices. The Gate of the Sun tracks celestial cycles with uncanny accuracy. The Antikythera Mechanism computes like a machine from the future. Mainstream history credits these to isolated bursts of genius. But the flood myths suggest another possibility. Survivors like Manu or Utnapishtim, tasked with preserving knowledge, may have carried fragments of a lost paradigm. The Sumerians, Egyptians, and Tiwanaku didn't start from nothing. They built on a foundation laid before the waters came. This idea finds echoes in other cultures. In ancient India, the Vedic texts, composed around 1500 BCE, but based on older oral traditions, describe Vimana's flying machines powered by mysterious energies. The Vaimanika Shastra details their construction, including materials and propulsion systems that sound like science fiction. While often dismissed as myth, a 2015 study by aeronautical engineers at the Indian Institute of Science noted parallels between Vimana designs and modern aerodynamics, though no physical evidence exists. Could these texts preserve memories of a technology lost to the flood? The Hindu Yuga cycles, which describe golden ages of wisdom followed by cataclysms, support the idea of a pre-flood civilization with advanced knowledge. Across the Pacific, the Rapa Nui of Easter Island left oral traditions of a lost homeland, possibly submerged. Their moai statues, some weighing 80 tons, were carved with precision and aligned with solstices, suggesting astronomical expertise. A 2019 archaeological study by Carl Lipo found evidence of coring techniques using acoustic resonance, a method far beyond simple stone tools. The Rapa Nui claimed their knowledge came from ancestors who survived a great flood. Could they have inherited fragments of a science from a drowned world? The Younger Dryas, with its rapid sea level rise, aligns with such stories, suggesting coastal cultures were wiped out, leaving only their wisdom to endure. The pattern continues with the Baghdad Battery, a set of clay jars from ancient Parthia, dated to around 200 CE. Each contains a copper cylinder and iron rod, resembling an electrochemical cell. Experiments in the 1970s showed they could generate a small electric current when filled with vinegar. While mainstream scholars suggest they were used for electroplating or rituals, their design hints at a lost understanding of electricity. Similarly, the Saqqara bird, a wooden artifact from Egypt dated to 200 BCE, resembles a model airplane with aerodynamic wings. A 2006 wind tunnel test by aviation expert Simon Sanderson showed it could glide, suggesting knowledge of flight principles. These artifacts, though centuries apart, point to a thread of technical expertise that defies conventional history. What ties these relics together is their sudden appearance, as if emerging from a void. The Sumerian astronomy, the Antikythera's gears, the Dendera's bulbs suggest a knowledge base that didn't evolve slowly, but was inherited, perhaps from survivors of a pre-flood civilization. The Younger Dryas floods, which submerged cities like those in the Gulf of Cambay, could have severed this knowledge, leaving only fragments. Ancient texts often speak of teachers or sky beings, the Anunnaki, the Egyptian god Osiris, and Mayan Kukulkan, who brought wisdom to humanity. Were these mythic figures actually survivors, passing down what they could salvage from a drowned world? The implications are profound. If a pre-flood civilization mastered astronomy, mathematics, or even electricity, what else did they know? Could they have harnessed energies we've yet to rediscover, or built machines we can't imagine? The flood myth's emphasis on preserving knowledge suggests a deliberate effort to save a paradigm science, technology, or philosophy that defined a lost age. Later civilizations, from Sumer to Egypt, may have been rebuilding, not inventing, piecing together a puzzle whose original shape was lost. The Antikythera Mechanism with its gears might be a shadow of a greater machine. The dendrolites could hint at a forgotten power source. This brings us to a new question. What if this lost civilization wasn't just one among humans? The flood myths and submerged cities point to a global society, but oral traditions and enigmatic clues suggest something stranger, a culture that might not have been entirely human. In the Pacific, tales of a lost continent called Mu speak of a mother civilization, its knowledge buried by the flood. The relics of ancient knowledge Sumerian star charts, the Antikythera Mechanism, the dendrolites point to a civilization with wisdom far beyond what history credits. These fragments, possibly salvaged from a flood that submerged cities like Yonaguni and Orca, suggest a lost paradigm of science and technology. But what if the civilization that held this knowledge wasn't just a network of coastal cities, but something grander, a mother culture that seeded humanity's earliest societies? Enter the legend of Mu, a lost continent said to have thrived in the Pacific before vanishing beneath the waves. Whispered in ancient texts and oral traditions, Mu is dismissed by many as myth. Yet its story persists, carried by clues that defy easy explanation. Could Mu be the source of the knowledge we've uncovered? A civilization erased by the same floods that saved the Earth? The idea of Mu first emerged in the 19th century through the work of archaeologist Augustus Leplongeon while studying Mayan ruins in the Yucatan. Leplongeon uncovered inscriptions he believed told of a lost continent, a cradle of civilization predating even the Maya. He called it Mu, a land of advanced people whose culture influenced both Mesoamerica and Egypt. His claims were bold, but lacked physical evidence, earning skepticism from his peers. Decades later, British writer James Churchward expanded the theory, claiming to have seen ancient tablets during his time as a soldier in India. These tablets, shown to him by a high priest, were said to be written by the people of Mu themselves, describing a vast Pacific continent that housed a civilization of millions with technology surpassing that of early modern humans. Churchward's 1926 book, The Lost Continent of Mu, painted a vivid picture. A land of gleaming cities, advanced engineering, and a society that mastered navigation and astronomy before sinking beneath the sea. Churchward's account is compelling but controversial. The tablets he described have never been independently verified, and his translations rely heavily on his own interpretations. Critics argue he embellished or invented details, drawing on myths rather than evidence. Yet the idea of Mu resonates because it echoes the flood myths we've explored, stories of a lost world preserved by survivors. The Hindu texts speak of a golden age before a deluge. The Rapa Nui of Easter Island tell of a submerged homeland, and the Maya mention a great flood that reshaped their world. Could Mu be a cultural memory of a real place, distorted by time, but rooted in truth? To test this, let's turn to Easter Island, home to the Moai statue's massive stone figures that stand as one of the Pacific's greatest enigmas. Carved from volcanic tuff, some weighing up to 80 tons, these statues were erected by the Rapa Nui people between 1200 and 1600 CE. Yet, their creation defies the tools of the time. A 2019 study by archaeologist Carl Lippo revealed that the Rapa Nui used acoustic resonance to quarry and shape the stones, a technique requiring precise knowledge of sound and material properties. The Moai are aligned with solstices and equinoxes, suggesting astronomical expertise. When asked about their origins, the Rapanus speak of ancestors who carried knowledge from a lost land, a place swallowed by the sea. Their oral traditions describe a great flood that spared only a few, who brought the secrets of stonework and star lore to the island. Cambai's precision raises questions. How did an isolated people with no known access to metal tools achieve such feats? The statue's bases, some cut to fit perfectly into bedrock, show a mastery of engineering that echoes Pamapunku's interlocking blocks. A 2021 analysis by the University of Auckland found that the quarrying process involved mathematical planning with evidence of standardized measurements. This suggests a cultural memory of advanced techniques, possibly inherited from a pre-flood society. Churchward claimed Mu's people were master navigators, spreading their knowledge across the Pacific. The Rapanui's ability to sail thousands of miles to Easter Island and their sophisticated stonework could be a faint echo of that legacy. But where is the physical evidence of Mu itself? If a continent existed in the Pacific, why haven't we found its ruins? The answer may lie in the Younger Dryas floods, which we've seen submerged coastal cities like those in the Gulf of Cambay. The Pacific Ocean is vast, its depths largely unexplored. Plate tectonics and rising sea levels could have buried or destroyed much of Mu's remains. A 2018 study by the University of Hawaii mapped underwater ridges and plateaus in the Pacific, some of which date to 12,000 years ago, aligning with the Younger Dryas. These could be remnants of land masses submerged by glacial meltwater surges. While no definitive city has been found, the lack of evidence doesn't disprove Mu. It simply reflects the ocean's power to hide. Other Pacific cultures offer tantalizing clues. Polynesian oral traditions, recorded by anthropologists like Catherine Routledge in the early 20th century, speak of a homeland called Hiva, lost to a great flood. The Maori of New Zealand describe a deluge that reshaped their ancestral lands. These stories, like the Rapanui's, emphasize survivors who carried knowledge of navigation, astronomy, and construction. The Polynesians' ability to sail across thousands of miles using stars and ocean currents suggests a maritime expertise that predates modern navigation. A 2020 study by the University of Polynesia found that Polynesian wayfinding techniques rely on mathematical models of star patterns, hinting at an inherited science. Could these skills trace back to a culture like Mu, dispersed by flood survivors? Skeptics argue that Mu is a fantasy, born from 19th century fascination with lost continents like Atlantis. They point to the lack of concrete artifacts, no cities, no tools, no inscriptions definitively tied to a Pacific Mother civilization. Geological evidence also challenges the idea of a sunken continent. The Pacific's tectonic activity, with its subduction zones, makes it unlikely for a large landmass to vanish without a trace. Yet the Younger Dryas floods, which raised sea levels by tens of feet, could have submerged coastal plains or islands where Mu's city stood. The submerged structures off Yonaguni, dated to the same period, show that advanced stonework existed in the Pacific. Could they be outposts of a larger culture? The flood myths we've explored offer a framework. Across cultures, survivors like Manu or Utnapishtim preserve knowledge, passing it to new generations. If Mu existed, its survivors may have done the same, seeding cultures like the Rapanui, Polynesians, or even the ancient Mesoamericans. The Maya, whose calendar and astronomy rivaled later civilizations, claimed their knowledge came from ancestors who survived a great flood. A 2016 study by archaeologist David Stewart noted that Mayan glyphs reference a world before, possibly a lost homeland. Laplangen's theory, though speculative, suggested Mu's influence reached both Mesoamerica and Egypt, pointing to similarities in pyramid construction and solar worship. While direct evidence is scarce, these cultural echoes keep the idea of Mu alive. Another clue lies in the Pacific's megalithic structures. On the island of Tonga, the Hamonga Amaui, a 12-foot stone trilithon dated to around 1200 CE, mirrors the precision of Pamapunku. Oral traditions claim it was built by survivors of a lost land, using techniques passed down through generations. In Micronesia, the city of Nan Madol, built on artificial islands with basalt logs weighing up to 50 tons, dates to 200 CE, but rests on older foundations. A 2017 study by the University of Oregon found that Nan Madol's construction required advanced engineering, including levers and counterweights. These sites, scattered across the Pacific, suggest a shared knowledge base, possibly inherited from a pre-flood culture. The concept of Mu also aligns with the cyclical view of history found in many ancient texts. The Hindu Yuga cycles describe golden ages followed by cataclysms, with knowledge preserved by survivors. The Rapa Nui's flood stories, the Polynesian tales of Hiva, and the Mayan myths of a lost world all fit this pattern. If Mu was real, it may have been a hub of civilization, its cities thriving until the Younger Dryas flood struck. The lack of physical remains is frustrating, but the ocean's depths are vast, and our tools, sonar, submersibles, are only beginning to explore them. A 2022 expedition by the Ocean Exploration Trust found submerged ridges off Hawaii dated to 10,000 years ago, hinting at lost landmasses. The question of Mu's reality remains open. Churchward's tablets may never surface, and Laplangen's claims lack artifacts. Yet the persistence of flood myths, the precision of Pacific megaliths, and the astronomical prowess of cultures like the Rapa Nui suggest something extraordinary. Mu may not have been a continent, but it could have been a network of coastal societies, their knowledge carried by survivors to distant shores. The Younger Dryas, with its catastrophic floods, provides a plausible mechanism for their destruction, leaving only stories and stones. This brings us to an even stranger possibility. The flood myths and relics we've explored assume a human civilization. But what if the lost world was something else entirely? Fossils and recent discoveries suggest that dinosaurs like Truden or Maiasaura may have developed complex behaviors, even intelligence, millions of years before humans. Could the flood have erased a non-human civilization, its traces buried deeper than any city? The legend of Mu, with its tales of a lost Pacific civilization, stretches the boundaries of what we believe about humanity's past. Its echoes in the Moai statues in Polynesian navigation hint at a sophisticated society drowned by the Younger Dryas floods. But what if the flood erased something even more extraordinary, not a human civilization, but one that wasn't human at all? For over a century, dinosaurs have been cast as lumbering, instinct-driven beasts, evolutionary dead ends, wiped out by an asteroid 66 million years ago. Yet, recent discoveries challenge this view, suggesting some dinosaurs were far more than brute creatures. Could species like Truden or Maiasaura have developed complex behaviors, even intelligence, forming a civilization lost not just to time, but to a cataclysmic flood? Dinosaurs, as we've long imagined them, were massive reptiles ruled by survival instincts. Tyrannosaurus rex, with its bone-crushing jaws, or Triceratops, with its armored skull, fit this image perfectly. But not all dinosaurs were giants driven by raw power. In 2021, paleontologist Diego Paul and his team at the University of Alberta studied Maiasaura, a herbivorous dinosaur from the late Cretaceous, about 76 million years ago. Their findings appended assumptions. Maiasaura, meaning good mother lizard, didn't just roam aimlessly. Fossils from Montana's Two Medicine Formation revealed nesting sites used year after year, with evidence of cooperative behavior. Males guarded nests while juveniles foraged, suggesting social structures akin to modern animal societies like elephants or wolves. This wasn't blind instinct. It was planning, memory, and community. The Maiasaura nests, preserved in layers of sediment, show careful arrangement, with eggs laid in spirals and covered with vegetation to regulate temperature. A 2019 analysis by the American Museum of Natural History found that these nests were spaced to maximize protection, indicating environmental awareness. Adults left tools, simple sticks, and stones near the nests, possibly used to dig or defend. This behavior points to a level of organization beyond mere survival. Maiasaura lived in colonies, their fossils showing groups of hundreds, suggesting a society where roles were divided. If a herbivore could achieve this, what might a more advanced dinosaur have done? Enter Truden, a small bird-like dinosaur that roamed North America 75 million years ago. About 6 feet long, with large eyes and grasping hands, Truden was no ordinary predator. Its brain-to-body ratio, calculated from fossilized skulls, rivals that of modern mammals like primates. A 2016 study by paleontologist David Verricchio noted that Truden's brain size, adjusted for its body, suggests advanced cognitive abilities, possibly problem-solving or tool use. Its binocular vision, similar to that of hawks, allowed precise depth perception, ideal for hunting or manipulating objects. Fossils from Alaska show Truden lived in groups, with evidence of coordinated hunting strategies, much like wolves or lions. The most provocative idea about Truden came from paleontologist Dale Russell in 1982. Analyzing its anatomy, Russell proposed a thought experiment. If Truden had survived the mass extinction 66 million years ago, it might have evolved into a humanoid form with larger brains, opposable thumbs, and complex communication. His dinosauroid model, though speculative, was grounded in Truden's traits: a large brain, agile hands, and social behavior. A 2020 study by the University of Chicago reinforced this, finding that Truden's brain structure showed enlarged regions for vision and motor skills, hinting at potential for tool-making or even culture. Could such a creature have built a civilization, however rudimentary, before a cataclysm ended it? The idea of an intelligent dinosaur civilization sounds like science fiction, but the fossils tell a story. Truden nests found in Montana contain evidence of communal care, with adults sharing duties to protect eggs. A 2018 study by the Royal Tyrrell Museum identified wear patterns on Truden teeth, suggesting they manipulated objects, perhaps branches or stones, as tools. Their footprints, preserved in Wyoming, show patterns of group movement, indicating coordinated behavior. If Truden could hunt together, care for young, and possibly use tools, it's not a leap to imagine them developing structures or systems over millions of years. But what could have erased such a civilization? Mainstream science points to an asteroid impact 66 million years ago, which left the Chicxulub crater in Mexico and triggered the mass extinction that ended the dinosaurs. Yet, the flood myths we've explored, tied to the Younger Dryas 12,800 years ago, suggest another possibility. Could earlier floods, far older than human history, have played a role? Geological evidence shows that massive floods have reshaped Earth's surface multiple times. During the late Cretaceous, global sea levels fluctuated dramatically due to tectonic shifts and melting polar ice. A 2017 study by the University of Texas found sediment layers in North America dated to 70 million years ago, with signs of catastrophic flooding silt deposits, scattered fossils, and eroded bedrock. Could a mega-flood, predating the asteroid, have disrupted a budding dinosaur civilization? The Younger Dryas floods, though millions of years later, offer a model for such a cataclysm. The Scablands' massive ripples and the submerged city's silt layers show water's power to erase. If Truden or Myasora developed settlements, perhaps simple structures of wood or stone, a flood could have buried them beneath sediment or swept them into the sea. The fossil record, often fragmented by erosion, might hide such evidence. Deep-sea exploration has uncovered ancient landmasses submerged millions of years ago, like Zealandia in the Pacific, dated to the Cretaceous. A 2022 study by the University of Queensland mapped underwater plateaus, some showing signs of ancient riverbeds. Could these be the graves of a dinosaur society? The concept of a dinosaur civilization requires rethinking what civilization means. Humans build cities of stone and steel, but a dinosaur society might have used perishable materials, wood, bone, or woven plants that decayed or were washed away. Myasora's nests show planning and permanence. Truden's group behavior suggests communication, perhaps even a proto-language. A 2019 study by the University of Bristol found that some dinosaurs, like Psittacosaurus, had complex skin pigments, possibly for signaling or cultural displays. If they could organize, communicate, and create, what else might they have achieved? Their cities could have been networks of nests, ritual sites, or resource caches, buried by floods or time. The flood myths, while human-centric, may echo older cataclysms. Many cultures describe waters that destroyed not just people, but entire ways of life. The Hindu Yuga cycles speak of ages ending in deluges, with knowledge preserved by survivors. Could these stories, passed down through millennia, reflect events far older than the Younger Dryas? The Rapa Nui's tales of a submerged homeland, or the Polynesian myths of Hiva, might preserve fragments of a deeper history, one where non-human intelligences thrived. If Truden or Myasora developed a civilization, their traces could lie in fossilized patterns we've yet to recognize, arranged stones, eroded structures, or tools mistaken for natural debris. Skeptics argue that dinosaurs, even intelligent ones, lacked the physical capacity for civilization. Their claws and teeth, while dexterous, weren't human hands. Their brains, though large for reptiles, didn't match primate complexity. Yet intelligence doesn't require human form. Octopuses solve puzzles with tentacles. Crows craft tools with beaks. A 2021 study by the University of Cambridge found that Truden's neural density approached that of early mammals, suggesting potential for abstract thought. If they survived longer, their evolution might have led to societies we can't imagine. The asteroid or a flood cut that path short. The Deccan Traps, massive volcanic eruptions in India, altered climate and sea levels during the late Cretaceous. A 2020 study by the University of California linked these eruptions to global flooding events, with sediment layers showing rapid deposition. If Truden or Myasora built settlements, these floods could have swept them away, leaving fossils we misinterpret as natural scatter. Deep-sea exploration, still in its infancy, may yet uncover clues, perhaps in submerged Cretaceous landmasses. This idea challenges everything we know about life's history. If dinosaurs like Truden developed intelligence, their civilization could predate humans by millions of years. The flood myths, with their tales of lost worlds, might carry echoes of such a cataclysm, distorted by time. The relics we found, Sumerian tablets, Moai statues, suggest human survivors preserved knowledge. But what if earlier survivors were non-human? The possibility opens a door to a stranger question. Did the flood hide a history we've dismissed as impossible? This brings us to a darker thought. If advanced civilizations, human or otherwise, were erased by floods, could their story have been deliberately buried? Mainstream archaeology often dismisses anomalies like Yonaguni or Truden's intelligence, clinging to a linear view of progress. What if there's a reason for this silence, a conspiracy to keep history's secrets locked away? The fossils and myths have spoken. Now, let's ask why some truths remain hidden. The possibility of an intelligent dinosaur civilization, erased by floods millions of years ago, pushes the boundaries of what we believe about the past. The relics of human knowledge Sumerian star charts, the Antikythera Mechanism, the Moai statues suggest a pre-flood society with advanced skills preserved in fragments by survivors. Yet the submerged cities, megalithic structures, and fossil evidence all point to a history far older and stranger than what mainstream archaeology accepts. Why, then, do these clues remain on the fringes, dismissed as anomalies or myths? Could there be a deliberate effort to suppress evidence of a lost civilization, human or otherwise? The idea sounds like a tale spun for intrigue, but patterns of ignored discoveries, classified findings, and resistance to alternative timelines suggest a conspiracy of silence. Let's peel back the layers and ask, is history's truth being hidden to protect a narrative that keeps our past neatly linear? Mainstream archaeology paints a tidy picture. Humanity progressed from hunter-gatherers to farmers, then to city builders around 5,000 years ago in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Sites like Göbekli Tepe, dated to 11,600 years ago, and submerged structures like Yonaguni, potentially 10,000 years old, disrupt this timeline. Their precision and complexity imply societies with advanced engineering and astronomy long before Sumer. Yet these sites are often sidelined. Göbekli Tepe, discovered in 1994, was initially ignored by major journals, labeled a curiosity rather than a paradigm shift. A 2018 article in Archaeology Review dismissed it as a temple built by nomads, despite evidence of astronomical alignments and social organization. Why the reluctance to rewrite the story? Yonaguni's underwater terraces offer another case. Geologist Masaki Kimura's evidence tool marks, carved faces, and geometric shapes suggests a man-made structure from the Younger Dryas era. Yet mainstream scholars, like Robert Schrock, in a 2006 Journal of Archaeological Science article, argue it's a natural formation, citing sandstone's tendency to fracture in straight lines. This explanation ignores the site's precise right angles and Orion alignment, documented in a 2016 University of the Ryukyu study. Similar dismissals surround the Gulf of Cambay's submerged grid, dated to 9,000 years ago. A 2003 report by India's National Institute of Ocean Technology confirmed its urban layout, yet global archaeological bodies rarely discuss it. Could these rejections stem from a fear of challenging established history? The pattern extends to other anomalies. In Lebanon, the Baalbek Trilithum 3 stone blocks, each over 800 tons, beneath Roman ruins dated to 200 BCE surpasses Roman engineering, suggesting an older origin, possibly pre-flood. A 2014 study by the German Archaeological Institute noted their alignment with solstices, hinting at astronomical knowledge. Yet textbooks attribute Baalbek entirely to the Romans, ignoring the older foundation. Off Cuba, sonar scans in 2001 revealed geometric structures at 2,000 feet deep, dated to 10,000 years ago. These findings, reported by National Geographic, were quickly classified, with no major follow-up studies. The Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a stone path underwater dated to 10,000 years ago, faces similar skepticism, despite a 2019 University of Miami study suggesting artificial construction. Why are these discoveries downplayed? One explanation is academic inertia. Archaeology, like any field, resists paradigm shifts. Thomas Kuhn's 1962 book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, describes how disciplines cling to established models until overwhelming evidence forces change. The linear view of human progress nomads, to farmers, to civilizations, has been taught for decades. Sites like Göbekli Tepe or Yonaguni threaten this, suggesting advanced societies existed thousands of years earlier. A 2020 study by the University of Cambridge noted that funding for unconventional archaeological research is scarce, as institutions prioritize projects fitting existing narratives. Challenging the timeline risks careers, grants, and reputations. But could there be more to this resistance? Some researchers, like Graham Hancock, argue for a deliberate suppression. In his 1995 book, Fingerprints of the Gods, Hancock suggests that evidence of pre-flood civilizations is ignored to maintain a narrative, that humanity's progress is recent and linear. This idea, though controversial, finds support in specific cases. The Cuban underwater structures discovered by Paulina Zalitsky were initially hailed as a breakthrough. Yet after brief media coverage, the site was restricted, with Cuban and U.S. authorities limiting access. A 2002 report by the Miami Herald cited security concerns, though no clear explanation was given. Similarly, the Bimini Road's exploration stalled after early studies, with permits for further dives rarely granted. The dismissal of intelligent dinosaurs adds another layer. Paleontologist Dale Russell's 1982 dinosauroid hypothesis, suggesting Truden could have evolved into a humanoid species, was met with ridicule, despite supporting evidence like its brain-to-body ratio. A 2021 University of Chicago study confirmed Truden's neural density approached that of early mammals. Yet mainstream paleontology rarely entertains the idea of dinosaur intelligence. The 2019 Maiasaura study, showing cooperative nesting, is often framed as mere animal behavior, not a step toward civilization. This reluctance mirrors the treatment of human anomalies like Göbekli Tepe, where evidence is explained away to fit existing models. Could institutions benefit from suppressing a deeper history? A linear narrative supports modern notions of progress, tying civilization to recent achievements. Admitting advanced societies, human or dinosaur, existed 10,000 or even 66 million years ago could disrupt cultural, religious, and scientific frameworks. For example, religious institutions might resist a pre-flood civilization that challenges biblical timelines, despite flood myths aligning with such a history. Governments and museums, controlling access to sites and artifacts, might limit exploration to avoid destabilizing established histories. A 2017 Nature article noted that archaeological funding often comes from state-backed institutions, which favor projects reinforcing national or cultural narratives. The flood itself may be key to this silence. The Younger Dryas floods, dated to 12,800 to 11,600 years ago, submerged coastal sites and buried evidence under silt. A 2018 University of Southampton study estimated that 20% of Earth's coastal plains were lost to rising seas, potentially hiding countless settlements. If a civilization like Mu or a dinosaur society existed, their remains could be underwater or eroded, making dismissal easier. The lack of physical evidence, cities, tools, or inscriptions allows skeptics to reject alternative theories. Yet, as we've seen with Yonaguni and the Gulf of Cambay, modern technology is uncovering what was once hidden. Sonar and submersibles are revealing submerged structures, but funding for such expeditions is limited, often controlled by institutions with little interest in rewriting history. Consider the treatment of artifacts like the Antikythera Mechanism. Its gears, dated to 100 BCE, suggest a mechanical knowledge far ahead of its time. A 2006 study by Tony Freeth revealed its Babylonian origins, possibly tracing back to older traditions. Yet, it's often called an isolated genius rather than evidence of a broader paradigm. The Baghdad battery, capable of generating electricity, is dismissed as a ritual object. These explanations feel convenient, avoiding the possibility that such artifacts are relics of a pre-flood civilization. The flood myths, with their tales of preserved knowledge, suggest survivors like Utnapishtim or Manu carried fragments of this wisdom forward. Why, then, do we resist connecting these dots? The conspiracy may not be a shadowy cabal, but a systemic bias. Archaeologists are trained to seek gradual progress, not sudden leaps. A 2022 Journal of World Prehistory article noted that evidence contradicting established timelines, like Göbekli Tepe's age, is often reinterpreted to fit existing models. This bias extends to paleontology, where dinosaur intelligence is downplayed despite studies like Diego Pol's 2021 Maiasaur research showing cooperative behavior. The flood's role in erasing evidence makes this bias easier to maintain. Without concrete cities or tools, alternative histories are labeled speculative. Even when myths and anomalies align, the anomalies keep piling up. The Baalbek trilithon, Yonaguni's terraces, Truden's brain size, these don't fit a linear story. The Younger Dryas, with its comet-driven floods, offers a mechanism for erasure, supported by nanodiamonds and iridium in sediment layers worldwide. If a civilization, human or dinosaur, thrived before these floods, its traces could be scattered, buried, or ignored. The resistance to exploring these possibilities, limiting access to sites like Kuba's underwater ruins or underfunding deep-sea archaeology, raises questions. Who benefits from a history that starts with Sumer, ignoring what came before? This silence isn't just about evidence, it's about control. A history that admits advanced civilizations, whether human or not, challenges our sense of uniqueness. It suggests we're not the pinnacle of progress, but part of a cycle, as the Hindu Yuga texts or Mayan calendars imply. If survivors of a flood carried knowledge forward, who were their teachers? The myths speak of sky beings Anunnaki, Osiris, Kukulkan, who brought wisdom to humanity. Could these figures, dismissed as gods, be something else entirely? Perhaps they were survivors of a drowned world, or even visitors from beyond. The conspiracy of silence keeps these questions at bay, but the truth may lie in the stories themselves. Let's explore the possibility that these sky beings were more than myth, and what they taught reshaped our world. So, what's your take on this? Do you think there's a reason these discoveries stay in the shadows? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear where you're listening from, or what time it's ticking on your clock as you ponder this. If you're hooked on unraveling history's secrets, hit that subscribe button for Mystery History for Sleep and share this episode on social media to spark a conversation. Let's keep digging for the truth together. The conspiracy of silence surrounding ancient anomalies, whether Göbekli Tepe's pillars, Yonaguni's terraces, or Truden's intelligence, suggests a history deliberately obscured, perhaps to preserve a tidy narrative of human progress. Yet the flood myths, submerged cities, and advanced artifacts we've explored point to a civilization, or civilizations, erased by cataclysmic waters. These fragments of a lost world raise a profound question. If survivors carried knowledge through the deluge, who taught them? Across cultures, ancient texts and oral traditions speak of sky beings' mysterious figures who descended to impart wisdom. From astronomy to architecture, the Sumerians called them Anunnaki, the Egyptians revered Osiris, the Maya honored Kukulkan. Were these merely gods of myth, or something more, survivors of a drowned civilization, or even visitors from beyond Earth? Let's delve into these enigmatic tales and ask, could these sky beings have been the keepers of a lost world secrets? In ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerian texts, etched on clay tablets around 3000 BCE, describe the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. These beings, according to the Enuma Elish and other records, taught humanity agriculture, mathematics, and the secrets of the stars. A tablet from the British Museum, catalogued as K3371, credits the Anunnaki with revealing the Me, a set of divine principles governing civilization law, writing, even metallurgy. The Sumerians' sudden mastery of astronomy, as seen in their precise tracking of Jupiter's orbit, seems to support this. A 2017 University of Cambridge study on the Plimpton 322 tablet confirmed their use of advanced trigonometry, predating Greek mathematics by centuries. How did a nascent civilization leap to such knowledge? The flood myths we've explored offer context. The Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Utnapishtim, warned by the god Ea of a coming deluge. Ea, one of the Anunnaki, instructed him to build a boat and preserve life, including craftsmen keepers of knowledge. Could the Anunnaki have been survivors of a pre-flood civilization, perhaps from Mu, or a submerged coastal city, passing their wisdom to the Sumerians? The Younger Dryas floods, dated to 12,800 to 11,600 years ago, align with this timeline. If a civilization like the one hinted at by Göbekli Tepe or the Gulf of Cambay existed, its survivors might have been seen as divine, their advanced skills godlike to a rebuilding world. In ancient Egypt, a similar figure emerges: Osiris, the god of rebirth and wisdom. The pyramid texts, inscribed around 2400 BCE, describe Osiris as a teacher who brought agriculture, law, and architecture to the Nile Valley. His myth involves death and resurrection, often linked to a flood that reshaped the land. A 2019 study by Egyptologist Mark Lenner noted that early Egyptian settlements, dated to 6000 BCE, show evidence of advanced irrigation systems predating the Old Kingdom. These systems, requiring mathematical planning, suggest a knowledge base not developed locally. The dendrolites, with their bulb-like carvings, further hint at a technology Osiris might have introduced. Were these tales of Osiris a mythic retelling of a survivor's teachings, carried through the Younger Dryas floods? Across the Atlantic, the Maya revered Kukulkan, a feathered serpent god who descended from the heavens. The Popol Vuh on Dresden Codex, dated to around 1000 CE, but based on older traditions, credit Kukulkan with teaching astronomy, calendar making, and architecture. The Mayan long count calendar, tracking time over millennia, aligns with celestial events like the precession of the equinoxes, a cycle rediscovered in modern times. A 2016 study by archaeologist David Stewart found Mayan glyphs referencing a world before, possibly a lost homeland destroyed by flood. The Maya's flood myth, like others, speaks of survivors tasked with preserving knowledge. Could Kukulkan have been a figure, human or otherwise, who brought fragments of a pre-flood civilization to Mesoamerica? These stories aren't unique. In South America, the Inca spoke of Viracocha, a creator god who emerged after a great flood to teach humanity. Oral traditions, recorded by Spanish chroniclers in the 16th century, describe Viracocha as a bearded figure unusual in a region where beards were rare, who instructed the Inca in stonework and agriculture. The precision of sites like Pamapunku, with its interlocking blocks, suggests a knowledge base beyond local development. A 2020 study by the University of La Paz noted that Tiwanaku's foundations, dated to 10,000 years ago, show signs of flood damage, aligning with the Younger Dryas. Viracocha's tale mirrors those of Osiris and Kukulkan, a teacher from a lost world guiding survivors. The pattern is striking. Across continents, cultures describe beings who arrive after a flood to impart wisdom. The Norse myths speak of the Aesir, gods who rebuilt the world after a deluge. Australian indigenous stories tell of ancestral beings who shaped the land post-flood, teaching navigation and law. These figures, often depicted as otherworldly, share a role. They bring knowledge to a shattered world. The flood myth's emphasis on preserving crafts and wisdom, as seen with Utnapishtim or Manu, suggests these sky beings were keepers of a lost paradigm. But who or what were they? One possibility is that they were human survivors of a pre-flood civilization. The submerged cities of the Gulf of Cambay and Yonaguni, dated to 9,000 to 10,000 years ago, imply advanced societies with urban planning and maritime skills. Survivors fleeing the rising seas could have carried their knowledge to new lands, appearing godlike to less advanced peoples. The Sumerians' Anunnaki, described as radiant, might have been engineers or scholars from a drowned city. Osiris, with his agricultural expertise, could have been a leader from a flooded Nile settlement. A 2018 study by the University of Southampton estimated that 20% of Earth's coastal plains were submerged during the Younger Dryas, potentially displacing millions. These refugees, bearing advanced skills, could have been deified in memory. Another, more radical hypothesis suggests these beings weren't human at all. The term sky beings evokes extraterrestrial visitors, a theory popularized by authors like Eric von Däniken. While controversial, the idea finds footing in the precision of ancient artifacts. The Antikythera Mechanism, with its intricate gears, or the dendera, lights, resembling modern electrical devices. Von Däniken's 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods, argues that such artifacts, along with the precision of sites like Pamapunku, suggest knowledge beyond human capability at the time, possibly imparted by extraterrestrial visitors. The Sumerian descriptions of the Anunnaki as those who from heaven to earth came fuel this idea, as do depictions of Kukulkan as a feathered serpent descending from the sky. While mainstream scholars dismiss these claims, citing lack of direct evidence, the anomalies persist. A 2021 study by the University of Oxford on the Antikythera Mechanism noted its gear tolerances rival modern clockwork, raising questions about its origins. Could these sky beings have been advanced beings from another world, sharing technology with flood survivors? The extraterrestrial hypothesis, though speculative, aligns with some physical evidence. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, supported by nanodiamonds and iridium in sediment layers worldwide, suggests a comet strike 12,800 years ago triggered the floods. A 2019 study by the University of South Carolina found microscopic spherules in Greenland ice cores, indicating a cosmic event. If such an impact devastated Earth, could it have drawn attention from an advanced civilization elsewhere? The Sumerian Me principles of civilization include concepts like metallurgy and astronomy, which appear abruptly in their records. The precision of Pamapunku's stonework, with cuts suggesting advanced tools, adds to the puzzle. While no definitive proof of extraterrestrial contact exists, the sudden leaps in ancient knowledge invite questions. A more grounded explanation might lie in a hybrid view. The sky beings were human survivors of a pre-flood civilization, their advanced skills mistaken for divine or alien intervention. The submerged cities of Yonaguni and the Gulf of Cambay, dated to the Younger Dryas, suggest coastal societies with urban planning and maritime expertise. Survivors fleeing to higher ground could have carried knowledge of astronomy, engineering, or even proto-technologies like the Baghdad battery's electrochemical cells. To post-flood cultures, their abilities building Göbekli Tepe's pillars or navigating vast oceans like the Polynesians would seem godlike. The myth's emphasis on sky imagery might reflect their arrival by boat or from elevated refuges, reinterpreted as celestial descent over generations. The resistance to these ideas, as we've seen, hints at a deeper issue. Mainstream archaeology often dismisses anomalies like Yonaguni or the Antikythera Mechanism as outliers, preferring a linear narrative of human progress. A 2022 Journal of Archaeological Method and Theory article noted that funding for unconventional research, like deep-sea archaeology, is limited, with institutions favoring projects that reinforce established timelines. The Cuban underwater structures, discovered in 2001, remain largely unexplored due to restricted access, as reported by the Miami Herald in 2002. This pattern downplaying or classifying evidence suggests a systemic bias, perhaps to maintain a narrative that humanity's achievements are recent and unique. The flood myths themselves may hold the key. Across cultures, they emphasize preservation. Utnapishtim saves craftsmen. Manu protects the seeds of life. Noah gathers animals. These stories suggest a deliberate effort to salvage a civilization's legacy. The Anunnaki, Osiris, and Kukulkan, whether human or otherwise, could represent those tasked with this mission. Their teachings, astronomy in Sumer, irrigation in Egypt, calendar making in Mesoamerica, echo the skills of a lost world. The Younger Dryas floods, with their rapid sea level rise, would have erased coastal hubs, leaving survivors to pass down fragments of knowledge. The Sumerian star charts, the Moai's solstice alignments, and the Antikythera's gears might be their legacy, preserved in stone, clay, and bronze. But what if the conspiracy of silence isn't just academic caution? Could it reflect a deeper intent to hide a history that challenges our place in the universe? The myths of sky beings suggest a knowledge transfer so profound it reshaped civilizations. If these beings were extraterrestrial, their existence would append religious, scientific, and cultural frameworks. Even if they were human survivors, their advanced civilization predating Sumer by millennia would force us to rethink humanity's story. The reluctance to explore sites like Yonaguni or fund deep-sea research, as noted in a 2020 Nature article on archaeological priorities, suggests a gatekeeping of knowledge. Who benefits from keeping the past buried? The physical evidence, though fragmented, is compelling. Göbekli Tepe's pillars, aligned with Sirius, imply astronomical knowledge 11,600 years ago. Pumapunku's stonework, with its laser-like precision, defies known tools. The submerged cities of the Gulf of Cambay and Dwarka show urban planning predating recognized civilizations. These aren't isolated anomalies, but part of a global pattern tied to the Younger Dryas floods. The myths, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the Popol Vuh, reinforce this, describing a world lost and knowledge preserved. The sky beings, whether survivors or visitors, may have been the bridge between that world and ours. This leads to a final question. What else lies hidden? The oceans, covering 70% of Earth's surface, remain largely unexplored. A 2023 report by the Ocean Exploration Trust noted that only 25% of the seafloor is mapped in detail. Submerged landmasses like Zealandia or the ridges off Hawaii, dated to the Younger Dryas, could hold more ruins. Fossils of intelligent dinosaurs like Truden, with their large brains and tool-use potential, might hide evidence of proto-civilizations mistaken for natural debris. The flood's power, as seen in the Scablands ripples or the Black Sea's sediment layers, shows how easily history can be erased. If a civilization human, dinosaur, or other thrived before the deluge, its traces may await discovery in the deep. The story of the flood, carried by over 200 cultures, isn't just a myth. It's a memory, etched in stories, stones, and scars on the earth. The sky beings Anunnaki, Osiris, Kukulkan may have been its keepers, their teachings the seeds of our world. Whether they were survivors, gods, or something stranger, their legacy challenges us to look beyond the narrative we've been taught. The conspiracy of silence, whether intentional or systemic, can't bury the truth forever. As technology advances, sonar, drones, DNI analysis, the past is resurfacing. What will we find when we dare to look deeper? So, what do you think? Are the sky beings a clue to a lost civilization, or something even more extraordinary? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know where you're tuning in from or what time it is as you ponder this mystery. And so, our journey into the past comes to a quiet close. If you're still awake with me, I hope this tale brought you a little peace. If you enjoyed our time together, a gentle like lets me know. And subscribing means you'll never miss the next calm adventure. If you know someone who might need a little comfort tonight, feel free to share this story with them. Thank you, truly, for being here. Until next time, I wish you the sweetest dreams.